Tonight, meet yet one more CEO who could face years in prison for allegedly cooking the books to make himself rich. Richard Scrushy was CEO of HealthSouth, the Fortune 500 healthcare company he created in his hometown of Birmingham, Alabama. And now the SEC and the Justice Department allege that HealthSouth, at Scrushy's direction, falsely inflated its profits by almost $3 billion to push up the price of its stock. And then last March, when one of his chief financial officers blew the whistle exposing the fraud, the stock tanked to just pennies a share, leaving thousands of investors holding the bag. Scrushy admits profits were inflated, but insists he knew nothing about it. Whether he did or he didn't, no one expected fraud from Birmingham's biggest benefactor. You can drive on the Richard Scrushy Parkway to the Richard Scrushy campus at Jefferson State Community College. Elsewhere in Birmingham, there's the Richard Scrushy Building, the Richard Scrushy Library, the Richard Scrushy Ball Field. There used to be a Richard Scrushy statue, but after someone spray-painted the word thief on it and a radio DJ urged people to pull it down like Saddam's statue in Baghdad, workers removed it. Birmingham's top radio host Paul Feinbaum has known Scrushy for 15 years through his rise and fall.
I'll make you this bet, that if Scrushy is indicted and if he goes to jail, it won't be long before his name's on the outside. He'll find a way to make it the Richard M. Scrushy jail. I don't think he'd live in a place that didn't have his name on it.
Congressional investigators have subpoenaed Richard Scrushy to testify before a subcommittee in Washington next week. His attorneys say that he'll appear, but he'll take the fifth. He won't answer any questions. So we were astonished when he agreed to answer our questions, and without having his attorney in the room. You are supposed to be a crook. You know that. The SEC, in effect, says you are. Your former financial officers, chief financial officers, say you are. That Richard Scrushy inflated earnings and betrayed his stockholders, betrayed his employees.
There's no evidence of any of that. And many of what the people have said is not true.
He told us his top financial officers committed the fraud without his knowledge.
You have to rely, you have to trust people. You have to believe, you have to delegate. I mean, you hire them, you pay them good salaries, you expect them to do the right thing. And I signed off on the information based on what was provided to me and what I was told.
You say you didn't keep track of the accounting.
CEOs don't do that. CFOs do that. Chief Financial Officer means he is the chief financial officer.
Here's how the SEC describes what it calls the scheme, your scheme. Each quarter, HealthSouth senior officers would present Scrushy with the company's actual earnings, and he'd compare them to Wall Street expectations. If the actual results fell short of expectations, Scrushy would tell his management to, quote, fix it by recording false earnings to make up for the shortfall.
That is not true.
Well, what is true is that Scrushy started with just $50,000 and he built a Fortune 500 company. He showed us HealthSouth landmarks while he told us how his company began 19 years ago.
One room with one desk and one phone. We put on a suit every day, starched shirts, wore a tie. We had no business, we had no income, we had nothing. And we started with a dream and an idea, a business card with our name on it and an idea. That's all we had.
But Scrushy did have a medical background. He'd been a respiratory therapist helping old people who had trouble breathing. And he saw that Medicare was paying big money to diagnose and treat the elderly. So he opened clinics that were able to do that with less overhead than the larger hospitals. And after that, when he realized that athletic baby boomers were getting sports injuries that required costly rehabilitation, he specialized in that too, hiring famous athletes who'd been his clinic's patients to help spread the word.
Dan Marino, Michael Jordan, Herschel Walker.
And as his business prospered, Scrushy began to buy up other clinical chains, creating his own healthcare empire.
They're operating 1,800 healthcare facilities, treating almost 100,000 patients a day and almost 50,000 employees. And they're in all 50 states and several other countries around the world.
Was he good for Birmingham for a while?
He was excellent. We became the leader in healthcare, particularly in sports medicine, because of Richard Scrushy.
After the scandal, one of the folks here in Birmingham Really think about it. Hate him?
Despised him.
Really?
And mortified.
Scrushy's world first began to come apart last March when one of his chief financial officers went to federal prosecutors and confessed that Health South, at Scrushy's express direction, had been overstating its profits hugely for years. This is the federal courthouse here in Birmingham where Richard Scrushy's fate could be determined. The prosecutors, as is their custom, wouldn't talk to us on camera before trial, and they would not let their witnesses talk to us either.
Not right now, gentlemen.
So far, 15 former Health South employees have pled guilty, including all 5 of Scrushy's chief financial officers. Scrushy says they did the dirty work behind his back, but the prosecutors say that when the CFOs pled guilty, they agreed to testify under oath against Scrushy. Michael Martin, chief financial officer. Let me read from the court transcript when he pled guilty. The judge asked Michael Martin, did you and Mr. Scrushy discuss the fact that the numbers contained in the filings were false? Yes, sir. Did Mr. Scrushy direct you to do something with the numbers? Yes, sir. He told me to inflate the numbers, to fix the numbers so that they met Wall Street's expectations.
So is Mike Martin just a dummy? Just some guy says, go do something to commit a fraud or a crime that will put you in jail, and Mike Martin just does it? You don't believe that, Mike. I would never have done that. He is not telling the truth.
Tad McVeigh, CFO until early this year, 2003, pled guilty, told the judge Richard Scrushy was aware that the financial statement contained numbers that were incorrect.
This is, again, it's not true.
All these guys are liars,
there's
and you are knight in shining armor.
Mike, there are 50,000 people. You have 5 people that have made these claims out of 50,000 people. Let me make a comment.
But you're in charge. I mean, come on. You are.
Doesn't mean I'm a
King
criminal.
Richard.
No, I did not. No, you're not right.
McVeigh told the judge you tried to justify it by saying, quote, all companies play games with accounting.
I never said that to him, and he knows that.
Why would these chief financial officers, what you're saying is they committed the fraud? For what reason?
I certainly didn't commit the fraud. People know me. They know I wouldn't instruct somebody to do that.
What would be the motive of your CFOs to commit a fraud?
I really don't want to get into the deal, but every one of them has a motive.
But then he did tell us what he believes motivated his CFOs to falsely inflate earnings.
Promotions, bonuses, stock options, an opportunity to make a lot of money. There's incentives in it, tremendous incentives, power, greed. There's a lot of reasons for what they did. There was no motive for me to destroy a great company that I built, a company that I loved, my 4th child. There was no reason for me to do that.
He benefited more than anybody from this fraud. There's no question about it. 100 times fold.
Doug Jones, a former U.S. attorney in Birmingham, has filed a class action suit against Scrushy on behalf of stockholders who lost billions while Scrushy made hundreds of millions of dollars from the fraud. How?
In his stock options, his salaries, and his bonuses. And he has, for years, cultivated an image that this is my company. I'm the one that brought this company up. I have my finger on the pulse. I know everything that's going on in this company. I know the numbers.
I know all of that, he told me, but I'm not an accountant.
He doesn't have to be an accountant to direct this fraud. Other people may be the ones sitting up there late at night, crunching the numbers and cooking the books. But that doesn't mean that when he says fix it, if that's true, that he's not as much responsible for engineering that train wreck as anybody else.
When the public sees a report in the Wall Street Journal and Health South says, hey, things look very, very good for the next quarter or the next year or whatever, and then people would be buying the stock and conceivably driving up the price of the stock, right?
That's right.
It suggested that that was the motive for you to inflate these figures because you were living high, you wanted that stock to be high, and that is apparently what people are saying is the motive for you to phony up the figures.
Well, I didn't phony. First of all, I didn't phony up the figures. Second of all, you've got to look at my buying and selling. okay? I didn't sell the stock at a high.
The stock is now $3. You sold $99 million worth of that stock between 10 and 14.
When you build something from nothing, you should have the right at some point to have some liquidity. That's what every young MBA in America is working towards. So what I did was, you know, the American dream.
But you got out.
I just got some of it out. I just
You got a
sold-
lot
I
of it
sold-
out,
no, I s-
$99 million worth.
Yes, but I'm still...
$99 million
still-
worth between 10 and 14. And had all of these other poor people, what are they doing? They're
Mike,
sitting there
Mike.
holding because they don't know what you know.
Mike, I had stock options that were going to go away. $99 million worth, going away. It was going away. It was done. I was going to lose it. What would you have done? What would anybody have done?
What he did was sell high, and to help keep it high, he regularly gave bullish profit predictions to Wall Street analysts and interviewers. Here's what he said on CNBC last year when the stock was selling at $15.
Well, I think the companies should be north of $20 a share right now. Certainly we should be higher than we are now. I would expect to see the company in the 20s, and that's where we're headed, we believe.
But just 12 days later, Scrushy sold more than 5 million shares of his stock. Now Health South's board has barred him from even entering any offices of the company he built. And Health South now admits that none of its past profit numbers can be trusted. The company is struggling to stay out of bankruptcy, and Scrushy is struggling to stay out of prison. You expect, I would imagine, the U.S. attorney here in Birmingham, within, what, weeks, to bring criminal charges
I don't
against you?
expect that at all. I think an objective review of the evidence will show that Richard Scrushy was not involved in any of these alleged crimes. And they will see that I was not part of that scheme.
He told me the prosecutors may decide not to charge him.
Well, I can't imagine that happening. You know, with the information that's floating out there now, I just can't imagine that there won't be some charges.
Scrushy still lives an over-the-top millionaire's life, though now that his fate will probably be decided by a jury in Birmingham, he wants to downplay his wealth. He would not let us videotape his 4 mansions, nor his antique car collection, nor his wine cellar, which has bottles worth thousands of dollars each. Hi, what's your name? But he wanted us to take pictures of him with his children and to hear from his 3rd wife, Leslie, a Methodist preacher's daughter who believes deeply in the Lord and in her husband.
I think he's an amazing man. I'm so thankful to be married to him. I'm thankful to every night finish out my day with him.
I've seldom been in this position before. To talk to a man of great accomplishment who maybe, or maybe not, went wrong. But who sits here and says the SEC is wrong, the prosecutors are wrong, the chief financial officers are wrong. The world is against me. They're all wrong and I'm right. I'm an honorable man and they're just damn wrong.
You know, why don't we take the testimony of people who are not felons, who are not admitted liars, and see what they have to say. Let's get their testimony. They won't say the same thing.
You're not going to jail?
No, I'm not going to jail. I'm an innocent man. I'm not going to jail.